I'm Alan Spears with Occupy Democrats, and in a bit of hilarious breaking news, Donald Trump is absolutely having a mental breakdown on social media. Now, before we dive too deeply into this breaking news, a bit of a setup to kind of give you some context as to why Trump is losing his mind. Well, losing his mind even more. To try to condense an incredibly vast topic, polls essentially give politicians, among numerous other different groups, a bit of their finger on the pulse. They can usually kind of gauge with a degree of accuracy how one particular group feels about any given topic, and it is a tool that has been used for many, many years now. With that said, we have seen in recent history that polls can also be quite fallible and can miss the mark or their predictions by quite a wide margin of error. Case in point, back in the 2016 election, pretty much every poll out there had Hillary Clinton in a landslide victory over Donald Trump, but as we all were unfortunately made too well aware, that was not the case, and the polls were incredibly wrong. Now, funnily enough, because Donald Trump was elected, and this pretty much contradicted every poll out there, it caused a lot of pollsters and a lot of political groups to sort of reassess how they conducted polls and they collected their data. While these groups made some adjustments and accommodations to get a little bit more of an accurate read on things and have improved in terms of their accuracy, they still are fallible, and we've still seen examples of that recently. All of that is to say, whenever you see a poll saying someone is X amount of points ahead or trailing behind, take it with a grain of salt. We've seen firsthand that they're not always the most reliable sources of information, but it's pretty much the best we've got so far, and that is actually what we're going to be talking about in the breaking news today with Donald Trump. Over the past few months, Donald Trump in many different polls has led President Biden by a number of different points. Now, as we have continued throughout the year, that lead that Trump has had over Biden in the various polls we've seen has slimmed down. In fact, in one of the most recent polls just a few weeks ago, President Biden was actually ahead of Donald Trump in polling by 1 or 2 points. Now again, it is important to remember that these polls are fallible and there is a margin of error that we must take into account. However, it is fascinating to see these numbers sort of shift, and clearly the trials of Donald Trump had an effect on the general public. Now, while as of this recording, President Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee for the presidency in 2024, there has been speculation about President Biden's health and concerns among a variety of different Democrats, some of them calling for him to step down. If Biden does ultimately decide to step down or is forced to due to some sort of health concern, the natural next pick would be Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, with Harris potentially having to take up the reins as the Democratic nominee if Biden decides to drop out or is ultimately forced to for whatever reason, naturally pollsters wanted to get a feel for how she would fare against Trump. Now, as one might imagine, this is probably devastating for Fox News to have to admit, but take a look and see for yourself what the folks over at Fox News had to say about a Kamala Harris victory over Donald Trump.
So as to whether or not Biden is the best candidate to go up against Trump, Ben Dixon and Amandi did some internal polling that Politico got access to. Trump beats Biden 43-42, but in that polling, Kamala Harris beats Trump 42-41, and Clinton at the top of the ticket with Harris as the running mate beats Trump 43-40. So when you take a look at that internal information, is sticking with Biden the right way to go?
Well, those are within the margin of error, of course. It's amazing that Democrats are so desperate. They think they have to bring back Hillary Clinton to leapfrog over Kamala Harris for the nomination and have her to stay.
Hey, third time's
as the vice president. Maybe this will be her moment. But there's
always great to see Fox News squirming and having to admit that they might be in a bit of trouble, and notice how they had to mention, well, these are within the margin of error. Of course they are. And honestly, I would love to have Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton or even still Joe Biden or quite literally anyone else other than Donald Trump sit in the White House. And of course, because Donald Trump, the man himself, is chronically watching Fox News, he did not take this news too well. Clearly upset that Fox News was daring to air this poll and hint at the fact that if Trump were to face off against Kamala Harris, that he would probably lose. He took to social media to voice his concerns. Fox News will put up fake confidential Democrat polls that were leaked to them, but not Rasmussen or any of the real polling groups that have me way ahead. What's up with Fox? I do better with CNN. You know, if I were in CNN's position and Donald Trump was saying how he was doing better with them than he was with Fox News, that might be a wake-up call to step back and reassess. But setting aside the ridiculous nature of CNN, it is kind of hilarious to see Trump crap his pants more than usual at the thought of having to go up against Kamala Harris. Because let's be clear, that's exactly what Trump is most afraid of. A strong woman who is not going to let him walk all over her. Also, you absolutely gotta love how Trump will do anything to disqualify a person, a group like these pollsters that don't paint him in the favorable light. They aren't the real pollsters. The real pollsters have him leading by a wide margin. I mean, look at this pathetic man baby. Look at him constantly whining online saying, no, I'm the winner, I'm the winner. Trump is the most pathetic loser, I swear. And I mean, seriously, there are polls out there that have Donald Trump ahead, and it's still, he can't help but be this utter narcissist and start complaining about this one particular poll that has him losing to Harris. And by the way, I'm surprised to see Trump posting online. We haven't seen him in like 10 days. He's golfing. That's right, he's golfing. It would seem that between the holes, he has taken the time to shitpost online and complain about anyone who doesn't paint him in a favorable light, just like the little sad, pathetic tyrant that he is. Look, like I said at the top of this video, polls aren't an exact science. You can get wildly different answers based upon how you ask or phrase the question, which area of the country you're asking in, or what's the sample group or the sample size or the demographic. There are so many variables when it comes to conducting polling. It's really hard to get these accurate. Despite them being not an exact science, however, they do give us a good general direction, a general sense as to the public sentiment. So even though these polls say that Harris might beat Trump or Trump might beat Biden or whatever these polls say, again, take them with a grain of salt. They are not definitive. And regardless of whoever is ultimately the Democratic nominee, they are going to be infinitely better than Donald Trump, and we have to make sure we get out and vote come this November for President Biden or President Harris or President Clinton or whoever it ends up being. Make sure you register to vote if you haven't already, and be sure to mark your calendars for Tuesday, November 5th. A lot of places of employment will give you a few hours or a half day to take off of work to go vote, so make sure you take advantage of that. And if you don't have something like that, you can always go after work because the polls will be open for quite some time. Take a book, take a podcast, take a friend, take whatever you need to do to keep yourself entertained, and make sure you stick around long enough to vote, whether it's for Biden, Harris, Clinton, or literally some other guy. It does not matter. Cast your vote and make your voice heard. And remember, if you do, and if we can pull this off and Trump loses, like I'm sure he will, we'll get to see the biggest meltdown online in human history, probably.